Jai Gurudev Bela. You can take over.
Jai Gurudev. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha dvadashodhyayah Bhakti Yogaha. Arjuna Uvacha Evam satatayuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano ye mam nityayukta upasate Shraddhaya parayopetas me yuktatamamataha ye tvaksharamanirdesyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutasthamachalam dhruvam sanniyamendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rataha kleshodhikatarastesham avyaktasaktachetasam avyaktahi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate ye tu sarvani karmani Mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mayyaveshita chetasam mayyeva manadhastva Mayi buddhim niveshaya nivasishyasi mayyeva ata urdhvam na samshayah atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mayi sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mami chaptum dhananjaya abhyasepya samarthosi Matkarma paramo bhava madarthamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi athaitadapyashaktosi kartum madhyogamashritah sarva karma phalatyagam ततः कुरु यतात्मवान् श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ज्ञानाध्यानं विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागः त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम् अद्वेष्टा सर्वभूतानां मैत्रः करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः समदुःख सुखक्षमी सन्तुष्ट सततं योगी यतात्मा दृढनिश्चयः मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिः यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः यस्मान्नो द्विजते लोको लोकान्नो द्विजते च यः हर्षामर्षभयोद्वेगैः मुक्तो यः स च मे प्रियः अनपेक्ष शुचिर्दक्ष उदासीनो गतव्यथः सर्वारंभ परित्यागी यो मद्भक्तः स मे प्रियः यो न रष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न काङ्क्षति शुभाशुभ परित्यागी भक्तिमान्यः स मे प्रियः समः शत्रौ च मित्रे च तथा मानापमानयोः शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखेषु समः संगविवर्जितः तुल्यनिन्दास्तुतिर्मौनी सन्तुष्टो येन केनचित् अनिकेतः स्थिरमतिर्भक्तिमान् मे प्रियो नरः ये तु धर्म्यामृतमिदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धाना मत्परमा भक्तास्तेतीव मे प्रियाः ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्यायः अथ त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः ॐ तत्सत् सर्वं श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु Just give me 2 minutes, please. We read the 12th verse and I will start with the last paragraph of the 12th verse.
Jai Gurudev Belaji, 2-3 paragraphs were left in the end, like
Yeah.
half a page also.
Only half a page?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the last page of 12th verse. So this page I can begin with? This last page?
Yeah, we were doing 11th or we were doing 12th? I think 11th we were doing. Actually,
No,
I'm
my
not
dear. I
informed.
think it was 12th, I think. 12th. I will just read the verse so that we can read. श्रेयो हि ज्ञानमभ्यासात् ज्ञानाध्यानं विशिष्यते ध्यानात् कर्मफलत्यागः त्यागात् शान्तिरनन्तरम्. Knowledge is better indeed than the practice of yoga. Meditation is superior to knowledge. Renunciation of the results of actions is better than meditation, because renunciation, there is peace immediately. So this we were doing. It was the last page, I believe. Karma phala tyaga is better than mere Ashtanga practice, dhyana excluded. Because when you do karma phala tyaga, there is the immediate peace. So I will just read the last page. In prayer, will is used and in fact is expressed in its highest form. If you have the will to earn money, it is not surprising, because money will immediately produce a difference in your life. Similarly, if you want name, fame, power, etc., and you exert your will to get it, there is nothing extraordinary about that. But in prayer, there is no immediate result. Yet you still pray very earnestly. That means it is the highest expression of will, pure will. The Jnanis, through prayer, etc., gained a certain disposition that made Jnana possible. A mumukshu follows their example. Arjuna here is a mumukshu. He wants moksha, and Krishna gives him all these choices which are only for mumukshus. In moksha, however, there is no choice because it is jnana. Having talked about the choices, he makes it clear that the result of all of them is the same, shanti, with which you can gain jnana. As an upasaka, meditating and living a life of karma yoga, you gain that shanti. Karma yoga will give you the shanti born of freedom from conflict, and meditation will also give you shanti. As a simple karma yogi with karma phala tyaga, prasada buddhi is predominant, and anything that comes is recognized as coming from the Lord, who is the karma phala data, giver of the fruits of action. You understand that you can only do, not create. Creation, including the creation of the result of an action, takes place according to the law, which is Ishvara. So yesterday we had wonderful discussion when the law itself is Ishvara, whether it is a good, joyful result or whatever result it is a prasada from the Ishvara. Now, the characteristics of the one who has jnana are described again for Arjuna. Please remember that jnanis have come to that stage of being one with the Ishvara only through the prayers. Not only through the prayers, but the prayer which is with a pure will. Now the characteristics of the one who has jnana are described again for Arjuna. The jnana itself is moksha, and giving the characteristics, lakshanas of a jnani, Bhagavan shows how he is one with him. The real definition of a jnani is the one who has jnana. It has nothing to do with his appearance or style of talking, etc. But there are certain characteristics of his interaction with the world in terms of his attitude, towards things like his own hunger, thirst, and situations he confronts. The way in which he interacts, not only with the people but all other beings, becomes sadhana for mumukshus. As sadhanas, they are to be understood and some describing the Gnani were given in the second chapter when Arjuna wanted to know the description of the Sthita Prajna, wise man. Now, here is a description. I repeat, is a breaking of voice. If it is too much breaking, please let me know. Some verses describing the Gnani were given in the second chapter when Arjuna wanted to know the description of the Sthita Prajna, the wise man. Now, here is a further description which is useful for a mumukshu because what is natural to a Gnani, he can try to understand and assimilate as a value. These values are natural because they are in keeping with dharma and are therefore Ishvara. Any virtue is an expression of a particular law of the creation and to be understood. Things like love, sympathy, compassion, etc. are not at all what we commonly experience because the limitation of our understanding vitiates their expression. Even though they are experienced by all, they have to be assimilated. And appreciation of and conforming to the things that are going to be told here makes a person mature. Thereby, he can gain the knowledge. The way in which a Gnani expresses himself in life is a sadhana for ignorant, the seekers. But they are ornaments for him. So, for the Gnani, they are the Lakshanas. But for the Mumukshu, they are the sadhana, the means for sadhana. Because the things like love, sympathy, compassion are the very swabhava of the Gnani. And for Mumukshu, it is sadhana. Anyone would like to share? Adveshta sarvabhutanam करुण एव च निर्ममो निरहंकारः समदुःख सुखक्षमी. Adveshta, the one who has no hatred, ill will. Sarvabhutanam, for all beings. Maitrah, the one who has the disposition of a friend. Karunah, the one who is compassionate. Evacha, and indeed. Nirmamah, free from possessiveness. Nirahankarah, free from the I notion. Sama, dukkha, sukha, equal in pleasant and unpleasant circumstances. Kshami, one who is naturally accommodative. Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitrah karunah evacha nirmamah nirahankarah samadukha sukha kshami. The one who has no hatred for all beings, who has the disposition of a friend, who is compassionate, free from possessiveness, free from I notion, equal in pleasant and unpleasant circumstances, and indeed one who is naturally accommodative. Just give me 2 minutes. These verses from here till the last but one in the chapter. These verses from here till the last but one in the chapter talk about the person who is a sannyasi or jnani. Even though later he says, devotee, that devotee is beloved to me. Sa bhakta me priya. He is not talking about the devotee that we commonly understand, the one who makes a division between self and Ishvara due to ignorance. If a devotee had this notion of difference between Jiva and Ishvara, he would not have the qualifications mentioned in this verse. These are attributes only of a person who is kritakritya, who has found
Bela,
fulfillment.
there is some disturbance.
Oh,
Yeah.
can someone read? Sumaji or Savita or Mrinalji, whoever can help,
I can
please.
take up after 15 minutes. So if anyone can handle for then, I will be good.
Yeah. Can someone do that in 5 minutes or I mean if it is...
Okay, I can read.
Oh, Dhanyavad Sumaji, Dhanyavad.
I forgot I was there. Okay. From where do you want me to read?
I think from the here
The
these
one
verses.
who has.
No, these verses, because Brahmaraji said there was a disturbance. So
Okay. These, can you hear me?
yes, very well.
Okay. These verses from here till the last, but one in the chapter, talk about the person who is a sannyasi, a jnani. Even though later he says, that devotee is beloved to me. Sa bhaktaha me priyaha. He is not talking about the devotee that we commonly understand, the one who makes a division between himself and Ishvara due to ignorance. If a devotee had this notion of difference between Jiva and Ishvara, he would not have the qualifications mentioned in this verse. So if a devotee had this notion of difference between Jiva and Ishvara, he would not have the qualifications mentioned in this verse.
Yeah, Brahmaraji yesterday said, no, about the particular panth where they consider Ishvara as separate. But we are very fortunate that we are into this knowledge.
Yeah, that is the Visishta Advaita. I think it is by Madhavacharya. And also Dvaita by
yeah, we don't need to name anybody, but there are different panths that they have different understanding. They believe that he is sitting somewhere away from the human beings.
Okay. These are, he would not have the qualifications mentioned in this verse. These are attributes only of a person who's a kritakritya, who has found fulfillment through knowing that by nature he is free from any limitation. Kritakritya. So who has experienced or who has found fulfillment through knowing that by nature he is free from any limitation. Because of that knowledge, he is spontaneously free from hatred, dvesha, etc. So, these qualifications are meant to describe a wise man, not a devotee or a karma yogi, but they are told with the seeker in view. If you want to be free from hatred, well, that happens in the nature of Atma. If there is no doubt or vagueness that the nature of Atma is fullness, Ananda, the expression in interacting with the world will be based on that Ananda and will express as love, the one basic emotion that modifies into compassion, friendliness, etc., as the situation requires. These are all expressions of one Ananda. Though these qualities describe a wise man, they are not meant to judge whether a person is wise or not. They are purely a description of those values and attitudes that a seeker should cultivate. Adveshta sarvabhutanam. Adveshta sarvabhutanam, the one who is free from hatred. Adveshta.
It is Adveshta.
Adveshta towards all beings. Sarvabhutanam. This is one of the most important qualifications of a sannyasi. Shankara says, even though a person may cause him some pain, the jnani does not entertain any hatred or ill will towards the person. For him, this is very natural because he sees all creatures as himself. Though this is an expression in keeping with the Shastra, psychologically speaking, this is how it works. Hatred arises only when someone can make you unhappy. If someone cheats you and you feel cheated, naturally, you will hate the person. You have been deceived and feel outraged. If you depend upon the world, you will definitely divide the world into objects of raga and dvesha. An object which you think makes you unhappy, you will naturally hate. But if you have inner freedom concerning your dependence upon the world, for your fullness, your vision is purely objective and love is your natural expression. But if you have inner freedom concerning your dependence upon the world for your fullness, your vision is purely objective and love is your natural expression. You have no resistance to a person being as he or she is. You may not be able to change them, even though you know a change would have changed the entire society. Even a wise man may have many people around him, some of them his own disciples, whom he cannot totally change. That is because it is very difficult for people to change. They will praise the wise man, attributing all that is good to him and not to themselves. And all the time, the teacher is saying, you are everything. But if you project all that is good onto someone else, you can continue to be as you are. And that is easier than changing because change is very painful. Then again, if you do not change, it is also painful. So we pray to invoke the grace for the necessary changes to take place. The commitment to change expressed in that prayer will take care of it. So this is the key. The commitment to change expressed in that prayer will take care of it. If you say a wise person does not hate, it is not a sanction for the ignorant to hate. The point is, no person has a reason to hate another inasmuch as a person is what he is because he cannot be otherwise. If he could, he would certainly change. Behavior that causes pain to others also causes pain to the one who inflicts it. Naturally, a person would want to change such behavior. The fact that he does not shows very clearly that he cannot. It is foolish to want the world to be entirely according to our wishes, even though they may seem valid. The changes you may wish for a person may definitely be good for him and those who relate to him. The problem is the person may not share your values, and even if he does, changing to conform to them is not a simple matter of will. Certain things where an action is involved, you can change by will. You can decide to walk a mile a day and then do it. You can always force yourself to do an action, but inner change is a different matter. Will only confuses the issue here. Commitment to change is fine, but by simply willing, one does not change. It is something like somebody asking you to love him. You cannot do anything about it. It is something that has to happen. Only by prayer can people hope to change. If you can understand that a person behaves as he does because he cannot help it, and if you see yourself from that person's point of view, you will find that you have to change. See, if you see yourself from that person's point of view, you will find that you have to change. We always think that the other person should change. Well, he is equally free to think that you should change. If you analyze it, you will find that you have no right to will others to change. The maximum you can do is to change yourself. Then, if you really let others be what they are, you find there is no hatred. Hatred comes, as I said in the beginning, only when somebody makes you unhappy. The truth is, nobody makes you unhappy. The problem comes from internalizing the behavior of others. If somebody does or says something disagreeable to you, you get angry. But if somebody complains to you of a headache, you do not get angry. And yet it is the same situation when an emotional problem causes certain types of behavior. The problem belongs to the person. You are responsible for your own actions and emotions, not those of others. Our knowledge point. You are responsible for your own actions and emotions, not those of others. Only if you could control things, you could be totally responsible for them. And since you have no control over your own emotion, where is the question of assuming responsibility for others' actions? If you have done something intentionally or unintentionally, you can own it up and make amends. When you are honest about your feelings, when you're honest about your feelings, that is the beginning of change. When you're honest about your feelings, that is the beginning of change. You can make amends of your omission and commissions. But what about those of others? How are you responsible for them? Yet someone else's omissions and commissions seem to affect you to a great extent emotionally because you at once internalize it. I repeat this. Yet someone else's omissions and commissions seem to affect you to a great extent emotionally because you at once internalize it. Certain behavior or words trigger old patterns of thinking, like self-criticism stemming from your background. If you analyze it properly, hatred is meaningless for any person, leave alone for a wise man. Hatred and anger, etc., arise from a desire to control. Many people have tried to save the world, but in the end, they are destroyed, often by some microscopic creatures. The only change you can hope to bring about is a change in yourself. And because you are free, you can change, as can others, if they want to. Everyone is a potential saint because saintliness is an expression of the nature of yourself. If you see this, you will find you have no problem of control or ill will. You have freedom and nothing to quarrel about. Only pragmatism. What is possible, you do. What is not possible, you just accept. A person who understands this does not have even a small degree of hatred or anger or for any living being. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. Seeing himself as all, he is a free person whom nothing can hurt. Unlike the ignorant, he does not helplessly set up situations where where he will be hurt, but sees all situations as shining after him. Unlike the ignorant, he does not helplessly set up situations where he will be hurt, but sees that all situations are shining after him. This fact is very real to him, making him naturally free from ill will towards all beings. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. You cannot hate unless you get hurt, and you cannot get hurt unless someone can objectify you. Once you objectify something, you can do anything to it, including hurting it. But Atma cannot be objectified. Who can objectify the consciousness in which everything else shines as an object? A hurtful action is simply a karma which shines after you, who is a sangha. How does consciousness get affected? Actions, therefore, remain simply actions, and your responses are pragmatic. Such a person will naturally have a disposition of friendliness. He is called Maitra. Why does he put in the abstract sense rather than saying a friend? Mitra. Anyone can be a friend, even a pet. He makes an abstract noun out of Mitra, which means the state of being a friend. Maitrasya bhavaha maitrai, friendliness. One who has maitri, friendliness, is called Maitraya. He bears no ill will towards anyone, yet he is not aloof. He is friendly. Can the others hear me?
Yes, Ji.
Yes, yes, very well.
Gurudev, there is no voice.
No, I think you need to log in, log out, and then come again. It's very clear, Sarlaji. Kindly log in once again, dear. Exit and log in.
So anyone wants, I'll just read the end of it and we can discuss while she joins. One who has Maitri, friendliness, is called Maitra. He bears no ill will towards anyone, yet he is not aloof. He is friendly. Aloofness is an indication of anger or fear of facing people. It is an obstruction to growth because we can only perfect ourselves in the midst of people. Wow. That is so powerful, no? Anyone
Yeah.
wants to add?
Yeah, this is just kindly read. This is a connecting paragraph only, just small. The same thing is explained here. Why you should not remove yourself from the group.
Removing yourself from people will only aggravate the problem in the midst of people because you require various kinds of interactions to invoke every aspect of your personality. Only then will you understand yourself. The jnani is not only friendly towards people, he is not afraid, as he will tell later. He knows that Atma is Ananda, and when that fullness gets related, it becomes various emotions. Friendliness is one of them.
So basically, the jnani comes from the space of feeling complete from within. He is not looking at the world to complete himself or seeking some happiness here and there. So he is full and he comes from the space that he is Atma, and Atma is complete, it is. And from that space stems out all these beautiful ornaments that he's adorned with, which is Adveshta, Maitra, Karuna, and all of that. And the mechanics of hate has been very beautifully described by Swamiji here. How we end up hating others. When the jnani comes from the space of Advaita, so where is the question of hate when there is no other? So he sees every other person as he is. He doesn't matter how the other person is. He is not flustered from within because he sees them only as a pratibhim, as a reflection, or no, not even a reflection. He is in that consciousness, state of consciousness, and all this is just happening in there. Just like how in a dream we see all these dream people, and it is as superfluous to him as a dream. Whereas for us, we tend to see intention behind others' actions, and even that aspect where someone wants to change the world. That was really very beautiful. Maybe we can read that one more time.
And also emotional maturity, because we get into hatred because of someone's behavior, which is charged with emotions. And that triggers the same in us. So we need to have that emotional maturity, which comes only by Antakarna Shuddhi, isn't it? Only by sadhana.
And also everyone wants to change the other. If you ask, like, everyone is dissatisfied with others, and if you ask everyone, they will say, yes, I want this thing to be changed in that person. So every individual wants a change in, but it is just that ignorance that you have to basically change yourself, not others. So it is no that infectious part that everyone wants to change something or the other in other person. It is.
And also the willingness to change, because some people don't know that they need to change. Some people know they need to change, but they're not willing to change. So that is also there.
It's very
So both
evident.
But
ignorance.
we don't
Wanting
have to
others
change
to
anyone. We have to change only ourselves. It's only our, we objectify everything, no, according to us. So it is our mind which is at fault. You have to change your perception and your whatever influence you are drawing from that. You have to change that. It's basically changing and framing and training our mind rather.
Jai Gurudev, then is it the habits also, others' habits also, we shouldn't be even trying to change? Like bad habits, smoking, drinking. Should we not make an attempt to change? That was little shocking for me. Like no one will be able to change unless it makes sense that unless that person decides to quit smoking or drinking, this will not happen. Definitely, it makes change. But what about the partners who stay with such people? Should they attempt to make some change in their life?
Everyone knows the good and bad of any this type of activity. Everyone knows, but still, if they are following, I think it's just that lack of will is there, and you just have to in between, like you can motivate them, educate them, and then leave it because I don't think so. Anyone changes until unless that the person standing in front of you is having that like a guru. His words are more powerful, so they have more effect rather than a normal person saying something. So it depends how the person takes your words. If he has very much respect and gratitude to you, he will obey you. Otherwise, I think normally in house people take you for granted. You say, then you. I don't think so. Like us, for us, it does improve such situations. It all depends on time.
Yeah, you rightly said that if we educate and we should move on, there are situations which we can change ourselves overnight. And in certain situations, we take time to change ourselves. It is only through knowledge that this change happen easily by telling ourselves repeatedly about it. Jai Gurudev.
Sumaji, I can continue reading. Thank you for filling in. I thought
Yeah, okay.
we'll read this para again more times. Actually, I'll just go back a bit. I will read this para again, if you allow me to. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. The one who is free from hatred, adveshta, towards all beings, sarva bhutana. This is one of the most important qualifications of a sannyasi. Shankara says, even though a person may cause him some pain, the jnani does not entertain any hatred or ill will towards the person. For him,
This is very natural because he sees all creatures as himself. Though this is an expression in keeping with the Shastra, psychologically speaking, this is how it works. Hatred arises only when someone can make you unhappy. If someone cheats you and you feel cheated, naturally you will hate the person. You have been deceived and feel outraged. If you depend upon the world, you will definitely divide the world into objects of raga and dvesha. An object which you think makes you unhappy, you will naturally hate. But if you have inner freedom concerning your dependence upon the world for your fullness, your vision is purely objective and love is your natural expression. You have no resistance to a person being as he or she is. So this is actually the the crux over here, in that the person who is a jnani has no resistance to a person being as he or she is. He's totally accepted them. So where is the question of wanting to change that person in order for him to be happy? You may not be able to change them, even though you know a change would have changed the entire society. Even a wise man may have many people around him, some of them his own disciples, whom he cannot totally change. That is because it is very difficult for people to change. They will praise the wise man, attributing all that is good to him and not to themselves. And all the time the teacher is saying, you are everything. But if you project all that is good onto someone else, you can continue to be as you are. And that is easier than changing, because change is very painful. So here he is talking about the disciples around the wise man who is praising the wise man. They go on showering a lot of praises, and in that they can remain the way they are. Why? Because change is painful. Then again, if you do not change, it is also painful. So we pray to invoke the grace for the necessary changes to take place. The commitment to change expressed in that prayer will take care of it. If you say a wise person does not hate, it is not a sanction for the ignorant to hate. The point is, no person has a reason to hate another inasmuch as a person is what he is, because he cannot be otherwise. If he could, he would certainly change. Behavior that causes pain to others also causes pain to the one who inflicts it. Naturally, a person would want to change such behavior. The fact that he does not shows very clearly that he cannot. It is foolish to want the world to be entirely according to our wishes, even though they may seem valid. The changes you may wish for a person may definitely be good for him and those who relate to him. The problem is, the person may not share your values, and even if he does, changing to conform to them is not a simple matter of will. Certain things where an action is involved, you can change by will. You can decide to walk a mile a day and then do it. You can always force yourself to do an action. But inner change is a different matter. Will only confuses the issue here. Commitment to change is fine, but by simply willing, one does not change. It is something like somebody asking you to love him. You cannot do anything about it. It is something that has to happen. Only by prayer can people hope to change. So if a
Can you elaborate this, like the will part?
Yeah,
This
correct.
is so important.
Supposing
Yeah.
a person he has a will to develop his muscles. He wants to become a bodybuilder or develop his muscles, but he's very thin. He's only willing to change. He only wants that, he's got that will. I want to become stronger. I want to develop my muscles. Just that will is not going to make any change. He has to change from within. He has to make those differences, those changes in his schedule, fit in going to the gym for some time of the day. So that change has to happen. Without change, just having a will, nothing will change. I want to attend Bhagavad Gita class, but I'm not able to log into the Zoom. It's not going to happen, right? So the will is there, but that commitment to execute that will into an inner change that makes that change possible, I think that is what is important. That inner change. Otherwise, will only remain a will. Although will is required to drive that commitment. Without the will, you cannot do. But just having the will is not sufficient. For instance, I'll tell you this example, my own personal example. I have, in this new post that I'm in, I have a lot of administrative responsibilities, a lot of things to do on the plate. So every morning, I think I make a mental list. Okay, I will do this, this, and this. But there is that time constraint. And at the end of the day, the same list kind of almost remains the same. I'm able to fulfill one or two of them. But that complete the change that I want to bring about, completing the whole set of tasks is not happening. So there's always something that is kind of left over. So what I'm thinking when I relate this paragraph to what is happening in my life, just having that will is only a mental activity, so to say. It has to be directed, that arjavam should be there. Thought, word, and deed. All the three should fall in line. Then that change happens. And
Didi,
that,
how to gather the courage at times like when you don't have to do the action? Will is there, but action
I
doesn't
think that is
happen.
where the prayer comes, no? It is only by prayer can people hope to change. And that prayer is what Swamiji is talking about here. The prayer is for uh, seeking that grace, for that will, that change to happen within. Where is that? There's one beautiful sentence there about prayer. Yeah.
Yes, Didi.
We pray to invoke the grace for the necessary changes to take place. See, then again, if you do not change, it is also painful. That's exactly what I'm going through. At the end of the day, I look back and I say, oh, these are what I wanted to do, and I'm not able to. The change did not happen. So it's painful. So what do we do then? We pray to invoke the grace for the necessary changes to take place. The commitment to change expressed in that prayer will take care of it. So I think these two are key to any change from within. And this is the very reason why you cannot change another person totally. You can you can kind of express a desire for them to change. Like what Mrinal was mentioning, if someone is smoking or drinking, do you think you just leave them alone? No, I don't think you leave them alone. You take the responsibility. You tell them, this is, from that space of centeredness, you tell them, this is not right what you're doing. And then let go. But you don't just leave them to the wind, because whoever that person ultimately has to have the will, number one, to change. And not just having the will, he needs to put that into action. And for that, Swamiji is mentioning that prayer will help, in order to cause that inner change. And ultimately, what we're talking of here as an inner change in the moksha purushartha is that we realize what is true, what is nitya, what is anitya, what is atma, what is anatma. And that is the highest form of prayer we can, right? The highest form of prayer will be to fall in sync with what a jnani is. His ornaments become our own. We realize we are just that. So therefore,
Maharaji, it must be his prayer and his willing to change also, no?
right,
We can also pray, but
uh,
his prayer also should be
should
there
be
for
there.
his change. Yeah.
Correct.
Agree.
See, that is why here Swamiji says, the changes you may wish for a person may definitely be good for him and those who relate to him. Like in this example, you want them to change from becoming a smoker to non-smoker. The problem is the person may not share your values, and even if he does, changing to conform to them is not a simple matter of will. So that person may still consider smoking as something that is pleasurable. He may not see that in the light of what you are seeing. So certain things where an action is involved, you can change by will. You can decide to walk a mile a day and then do it. You can always force yourself to do an action, but inner change is a different matter. Commitment to change is fine, but by simply willing, one does not change. It is something like asking somebody to love you. You cannot do anything about it. It is something that has to happen. Only by prayer can people hope to change. If you can understand that a person behaves as he does because he cannot help it. Remember in, I think, chapter 3 or so, he says, it is only, it's through Prakriti that drives the person's behavior. He's helplessly tossed over by his Prakriti. And if you see yourself from that person's point of view, you will find that you have to change. We always think that the other person should change. Well, he is equally free to think that you should change, isn't it? We always point fingers at others. I'm perfect, the other person is not, they have to change. But then that other person might be thinking, this person has to change. If you analyze it, you find that you have no right to will others to change. The maximum you can do is to change yourself. Then, if you really let others be what they are, you find there is no hatred. This maximum you can do is to change yourself, is to that inner milieu that you have, that you're, whether you're coming from the space of lack, whether you're coming from the space of insecurity, that person's behavior, if it is the way I think it should be, then I'm fine. That is the inner change we should. So with or without, whether that person is the way you want him to be or not, whether you can remain steady within. From that space, then you can bring about change. But then just wanting that person to change because you think he needs to change without changing yourself. You yourself are ignorant. You yourself are an ajnani. And you want another ajnani to change makes no sense, right? So you should come, our first and foremost, um, I wouldn't say duty or responsibility is to change within ourselves. The problem,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
If situations you encounter that every time you have to change, and this thought comes, why me only I have to change all the time?
Mm.
So doesn't it come as a hindrance, then okay, certain situation change, but not every time. Can we change on every situation?
See, that's the whole purpose of this path, no?
To gain peace, your own mental peace, every
Yeah.
time you will have to work on. It is you have to make that attitude of yourself that it in any situation, whatever, maybe it is coming daily or maybe it is coming in a week, every time it is you, because you are in that knowledge, so it is you who have to work. You can't expect others because they don't know, they are ignorant. So it is
Even
it is
in every situation, that was my question. So
Yeah, in every
Yeah, and
situation.
you should also know what change you should bring about in yourself. Sometimes just by agreeing with the situation it's not going to bring any change to anybody. So how to handle that person, situation and things, you should know yourself what change you need to bring about in you. That first
yeah,
you must know.
it
And
that is
very well.
knowledge.
if that is not known, then you think that, okay, I will agree with everybody's decision or whatever the situation but demands. It's just not brought any change really. No inner change has come about. Secondly, this is where I felt that you need to strengthen your inner self, or I mean, that's not the right word. You need to uh, become spiritually strong, mentally strong. So for that, I feel the sadhana really, really helps. And that
Yeah.
sadhana brings about changes in the other people or in the other in that situation also. And if that person is also doing the sadhana, definitely that person will also benefit from that. All our advanced course and Sahaj removes these impressions. Why are people behaving in certain way? Because we have the trigunas and the impressions, and which are a hindrance. Some are good, some are a hindrance. So we want that hindrance to go away, for which sadhana definitely helps. For a long period of time you have to do, not just 1 or 2 days. Definitely these sadhanas, especially the silence course and Sahaj. Of course, Sudarshan Kriya, of course, wipes out. But regular practice of uh, the meditation helps to a great extent. And of course, Swamiji has said, no, the highest will is the power of prayer. And there is total surrender. You surrender. If you cannot change yourself or the situation or the person, then the highest change is to align with the will of God. And that also brings you some strength. Sometimes you have done everything that is within your knowledge, I would say. I'm not saying 100% you're right, but whatever is within our knowledge, we have done everything and still it is difficult. Then surrender is what Bhagwan says. And the same thing they say in the advanced course also, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Four ways to deal with the situation.
Important, I am remembering Kashtasya Sukhasya na kopi data means nobody is giver of you the happiness or sadness.
Misery.
So if we don't change, we will get this thing. No? We will become sad. So we have to save our mind.
So applying the knowledge is the best way to get out of any uh, critical situation or the situation which is affecting your mental peace. I find it when you have that knowledge, applying it relieves you of all that messy thing going on. You just shift only the shift of mind happens and everything gets in alignment. Like
See,
applying knowledge
because the
literally helps.
Yeah. The way each one behaves is governed by his complex interplay of his what is reigning uppermost, sattva, rajas, tamo guna, whichever that, his vasanas, his impressions. So many factors determine a person's behavior. Even our own behavior, we're still governed by our own prakriti, our own nature. So one uh, is that you cannot judge another person. You know what, you don't know what baggage he or she is carrying. And like what Persiji keeps mentioning, keeps saying, you cannot judge another person and label him, right? And therefore, every time we do that, what is happening? We are causing that inner conflict, that we either put the person in our mental we compartments. We put him as a person that we like, or a person we don't like, or a person that we hate. When you judge a person, but if you come from the standpoint of being non-judgmental, you're seeing things as they are, and you're accepting the person. Then, like what Gurudev says, it's an active acceptance, not a passive acceptance. You don't say, okay, let the world be the way it is. To whoever that matter around you, you make an attempt to bring about that change. But from what kind of standpoint? Very, very important for us to be centered from that calm space of mind. After having accepted the situation and the person, then you bring about the change. And then you let go. You don't be nagging and till that person changes. Then you let go. Because ultimately that person has to change, has to have the will to change, number one. He should see the values that you are seeing. So all this falls in line so beautifully with the point that we learn is accept people and situations as they are. And do
Hariom?
not see an intention.
It is
Yeah,
not, it is
Hariom.
along with accept people and situation as they are and take appropriate action.
Mm. Yeah.
Sometimes non-action may be the best, but we need to act as well.
Mm.
Hariom, the question was about, I believe, as per my little understanding, that every time I have to change. That was the question. And I say that yes, every time we have to change our own self only. The example of that sage who was rescuing every time the scorpion. That was the Jnani. So we feel that we are changing when that doership is there, that I am changing for others. No, it is not for others. It is for our own sake. We have to do for that Shanti that Swamiji had beautifully explained, to be accommodative. So every time, yes, that was the question, that every time I only have to change for others. Yes, it is not for others, but for our own sake.
When you say, I only have to change, then there's an element of that ahankara that's coming up. Why do I have to change all the time? Isn't it? So, but then when you are the one, you change yourself, then we don't know whether that change that comes up in you will slowly eventually change others, which is what we say, one person who's happy creates those waves of happiness around. So if you really want that other person to change, who has to change? We have to change. I have to change. That be the change you want to see, that Gandhiji says is so very relevant and apt. So the problem comes from internalizing the behavior of others. If somebody does or says something disagreeable to you, you get angry. But if somebody complains to you of a headache, you do not get angry. And yet, it is the same situation when an emotional problem causes certain types of behavior. This I didn't quite understand. So, but if somebody complains to you of a headache, you do not get angry. But if somebody says or something disagreeable to you, you internalize that behavior of that person and you get angry. Yet you do not get angry if a person complains to you for headache, and yet it is the same situation when an emotional problem causes certain types of behavior. Exactly, isn't it? So this person has a physical problem, he's having a headache. That does not trigger anger in you. But when that person has some emotional problem within that you are not able to see, and because of that he behaves the way he behaves, you get upset, you internalize that behavior of that person, and then you get angry. The problem belongs to the person. You are responsible for your own actions and emotions, not those of others.
This is
Only
such a
if you could,
profound,
so profound, isn't it?
very, we always do that, no? If something is physical outside, we take it so seriously. But the internal thing which goes on inside the other person's mind, we do not care. It is so important even to accept that inner confusion, that inner conflict which is going on in other person, and to be compassionate, to feel that belongingness in even in that emotional turmoil time of others. How much pain he must be going through, that's why he is behaving the way he is.
So the one thing is not to internalize the behavior of others. The problem is we internalize it. As simple as if a person does not give you eye contact, you internalize it and then you say, oh, this person is not respectful towards me. He does not care for me. You've internalized the behavior. Whether rather than that, you accept the situation, you just see it as is where is. And then you are not affected. Like that story of the Buddha that we tell in Art Excel and other places where the person comes and hurls insults at Buddha, but he does not take any of them. So the next day when he comes and he apologizes, he says, who said to whom? I did not take any of your insults. So where were there all those insults? They remained with you. So that is the highest state that a jnani is in. He does not internalize behavior of others, unlike what we do. The other day I had one of my colleagues who we had a little difference of opinion and she did not even give me eye contact. I wanted to iron it out with her. I approached her 2-3 times and then she didn't give me eye contact. And for me, I internalized that and I felt upset about it. I said, oh, how come she's not even giving me eye contact? And now when I look at this, when I'm reading this, it brings about that little understanding that I was completely internalizing her behavior, which was what caused me to get upset. So as a sadhana, if you can be responsible for our own emotions and our own feelings, which is what Gurudev says. When you accept the responsibility point, you are responsible for your own self, for your own actions, for your feelings, emotions, not the other person. So
what will help us in understanding this better also is that in Patanjali Yoga Sutras also we did how are thoughts formed. They are from impressions, vritti, and impressions how they are formed, that is very important. Nobody goes back to that as to how are impressions formed in the mind. So see, we are affected. Earlier days it was newspaper, today it is social media. Then our peer group, like our parents and ancestors, grandfathers, grandmothers, whatever they told us, our impressions in our mind is based on all that. And the scriptural studies, if at all anything was shared with us. So now, earlier days, the scriptures were replaced with newspapers. So we thought that everything that was written in the newspapers is gospel truth. So our impressions were based on that. We thought it to be Satya, whatever is written. Now we know what is fake news today after social media has come into play. So our impressions are based on all that, how they are formed. And the impression that people carry, give rise to their thoughts, which give rise further to their actions. Now we are talking only about the actions or behavior of another person, that he is disagreeable. But if you see, if you go deep into that, the actions were results of his thoughts, which were results of his impressions which he carried. And the impressions were based on his childhood, where he picked it up from his parents, ancestors. Like somebody in USSR would be an atheist, it would be his parents, grandparents who have taught him to be an atheist, non-believer in God. So he carries that impression with him that is the right thing to do. Accepting that situation and then taking corrective action will not disturb our mind. We take corrective action, but we first accept the situation. So many studies are conducted on alcohol, and it used to come in the newspaper. A group of 25 people took one peg of alcohol every day, and their this thing was normal, and they did not have any heart problems and all that. This used to come as a 4-5 line study report that would come in newspapers very often. This was a promotional campaign by the alcohol industry. And common people don't know the difference between a study and a trial. A trial is conducted over 700 people in 3 different groups, either in Europe, in China or Mongolia, and in an Asian country. And if all of them, then that medicine is considered to be safe, it is free from whatever side effects are there, all that is monitored by paramedicals. So they mix up the trial with a study. And this is how that newspaper reports it. A cup of coffee is good for the day. What is caffeine doing to your system? So then that impression is caused by, so where you are, a husband would be away in his office all day. He would be in social contact with so many other people. And they are also responsible for the impressions he carries back home. And we feel that our impressions are only correct because we are at home. I am right. The other person is not right. That is where that acceptance has to come. What will you do with government employees, bureaucrats who earn under the table? All along it has been happening till Modi government came in and he digitalized the whole system. They used to make so much of money, and then where would they spend that money? They would get caught with the money, they would go into jail, they would lose their jobs. So they would go to bars and drink beer over there. What was their lifestyle? So it's the group that you are in that also has an effect on you. And if you are disturbed by that, then corrective action would become very difficult. Thoughts travel faster than words. If you look down upon a person, that person will know it, even if you don't speak. Your actions, your body language will say so much to that person. And then he will rely more on alcohol or whatever that he's relying on, rather than on you. Because you give him no emotional comfort. I've seen a lot of these relationship issues in 20-25 years. Jai Gurudev.
So thank you so much, Percy ji, for sharing all of that. So this person that is in my department, I held it because I approached her 3 times to iron out whether there was some misunderstanding. When you're talking of corrective action, I just wanted to complete this corrective action that that happened 2 days ago. So it was almost 2 weeks maybe after that incident happened. So I told her, I said, let's have a heart-to-heart talk. So we ultimately sat down, spoke to one another, and I got to know that she thought that my behavior was like, it was a kind, I was like, she felt threatened because of my behavior, which I did not know. I was only behaving the way I did because being in the position of the head of the department, I wanted to take care of the patient safety. That was uppermost in my mind. But that she perceived as was threatening to her. And therefore she behaved the way she did. So ultimately it was all a matter of, number one, internalizing one another's behavior. Second, a wrong perception. So when we ironed it out, it ended up so beautifully. I mean, we hugged each other and we said, if there is anything, we will express it to one another. So there is harmony in the department and not otherwise. We both agreed that we need to create that. Being in a consultant post, we need to create that harmony and that happiness in the department rather than have ill will against one another. So that in that corrective action is important. So that change, again, coming back to that change, where what we were talking about here is that if you are honest with your feelings, that is the beginning of change. Let me just read this part. So if somebody complains to you of a headache, you do not get angry, and yet it is the same situation when an emotional problem causes certain types of behavior. The problem belongs to the person. You are responsible for your own actions and emotions, not those of others. Only if you could control things could you be totally responsible for them. And since you have no control over your own emotions, where is the question of assuming responsibility for others' actions? So this is where that thing is coming from. How can you change another person? If you have done something intentionally or unintentionally, you can own it up and make amends. When you are honest about your feelings, that is the beginning of change. You can make amends for your omissions and commissions. But what about those of others? How are you responsible for them? Yet, someone else's omissions and commissions seem to affect you to a great extent emotionally because you at once internalize it. This is the problem we do. We internalize others' problems, others' behavior. Certain behavior or words trigger old patterns of thinking, like self-criticism stemming from your background. If you analyze it properly, hatred is meaningless for any person, leave alone for a wise man. Hatred and anger, etc., arise from a desire to control. Many people have tried to save the world, but in the end, they are destroyed, often by some microscopic creatures. The only change you can hope to bring about is a change in yourself. And because you are free, you can change, as can others if they want to. Everyone is a potential saint because saintliness is an expression of the nature of yourself. If you see this, you will find you have no problem of control or ill will. You have freedom and nothing to quarrel about, only pragmatism. What is possible, you do. What is not possible, you just accept. I'm so reminded of this is so beautiful. I know we've reached the end of Manana, one more minute to go. I'm just reminded of that beautiful prayer that says, God, give me the wisdom to accept, not the wisdom, give me the strength to accept the things, to change the things I can change, to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think on that note, we can maybe end Manana today. We will take this up again tomorrow from this a person who understands. We're still in chapter, in shloka number 12. So we'll reflect on this one part of how change within is so important, how we have to take that responsibility, and how prayer is the highest form of prayer is to pray for grace to change, to bring about that change within and not internalize others' behavior. That is so important. On that note, we'll end today's Manana. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev Brahmaraji, you need to end the meeting, I believe.
Okay, I didn't end the meeting. Sorry.